Well, we're going to start now. I want to officially welcome all of you to the fourth webinar in our You Can Do It online series brought to you by Speakout. We're based here in Miami, Florida. And I'm Ann Friedman, the founder of CEO, author of Public Speaking for the Genius and a collection of ebooks. And I'm just delighted that each of you are here today. If you have any questions at any point, please either email at Ann@Speakout Inc. or text or call me at 305-733-4054. We are on Twitter as Ann B. Friedman, Facebook, speakoutinc.com, and LinkedIn, Ann B. Friedman. If you'd like to connect with us in any of those ways, we certainly invite you to do that. And we would welcome any comments you might want to say about the series to help us spread the word. Now, today's session is called How to Avoid the Biggest Mistakes People Make Presenting Online and Off. And this is based on years of training and coaching and making mistakes myself. And so I'm delighted to share these with you to help you avoid ever doing these, or maybe just doing one or two of them, okay? So the question is, why is it that some people just get up and they seem to have everything work perfectly? And in other cases, it's a disaster. And maybe you've had that same experience. You've gotten into a situation, everything was ready, and then boom, disaster after disaster with technology or questions interrupting you that you weren't anticipating. All kinds of things can happen, whether it's a virtual meeting or a live meeting. So I love acronyms, and I have assembled the biggest mistakes into an acronym called POSER. And we'll go through each of these letters, but I want to introduce you. In the first webinar that we did in the series, you met Peter, the POSER. Here's Peter. Can everybody see him? Okay. Peter is this wonderful teddy bear. He's got a tie on. Can you see? He's got sunglasses. He thinks he's one cool dude. Well, a poser is a person who acts as if they were someone else to impress somebody. None of you are posers, but each of you may have made the kinds of mistakes that wind up as disasters. So let's begin with the first letter in that acronym. You might want to write out, if you have a pencil or a pen nearby, write out the word POSER, P-O-S-E-R, and then we'll be filling that in to help you never have to become one or feel like you're one. So the first thing is that people forget to plan, they have no clear purpose, and they don't practice. And the results can be disastrous. So sometimes, does this sound like you? Sometimes you feel like you're just going, you're just winging it, you're just there. I use a rubber chicken sometimes to illustrate that kind of point. You can usually tell if someone's winging it, can't you? You can usually tell because they're nervous or they're scattered or they're going all over the place. And you don't want that to be you, do you? So in order to avoid winging it, what I encourage you to think about is a pre-presentation plan. You want to make sure you know who's going to be there, what kind of platform are you working on, is it Zoom, is it any of the other webinar programs that people have been using for GoToMeeting. There are all kinds of them. Exactly when is it expected? Where are people coming from? Why was this meeting called in the first place? How is it going to run? And how much do they know about what you're talking about? These are questions you want to get answered well before your actual presentation. Then, as we've talked about in some of the past webinars, one of the differentiators between a virtual meeting and a live meeting is you have more control over the environment. So I have put a lamp on my desk. I have put, at Terry Jacob last week's speaker's recommendation, I put a white mat under my computer. I've played with my makeup to make sure it looks good in the lighting. What can you do to make sure that you are visible? Because there's nothing more frustrating than not being able to see somebody's face, isn't it? Not hearing them is one thing, not seeing them is something else. And then if you have pets, I have a cat who I have to put out of my office before I do a webinar. If you have family members or children, you've all seen these videos that are circulating about how there was one with an NBC anchor who was filming from home. And all of a sudden you see his 3-year-old coming into the room and they're talking about the conflict in Syria. And then the baby comes wandering in her little, another stroller, a little moving device. And the mother comes into the room to pull the baby and the little toddler out. And this guy is just trying to go on with the presentation. So you may be faced with the same kind of thing. So please remember to make your space as secure as possible for your presentation. If you're on site, I always recommend people have a speaker's emergency kit that includes an extra outfit in case you spill something on you. Make sure you have handouts, a plan to collect business cards. Do you want a sign-in sheet? This will be for when we go back to live meetings. But the version of it here is I learned the hard way after the first webinar that I needed to have a glass of water near me because I started to choke and I didn't have anything. And I also made sure that I had my Kleenex nearby because I have allergies and you don't want to watch me with a runny nose. So what can you have near you when you're doing an online presentation that gives you the confidence that you might have had in front of a group? Then you want to think about what is your plan after you have your meeting. How are you following up? Is it through email? Are you sending something out? Are you arranging another meeting? You want to make sure you have a follow-up plan for your presentation. Another thing in this category that people forget to do is to really have a clear purpose for the meeting or the presentation. So there are 4 types of presentations people typically give, but I would suspect that no one on this call is primarily out to educate. The folks that are educating are our wonderful teachers who I don't know how they're surviving in this environment. Their purpose is to educate our children or professors to educate students. Now, we're not professional entertainers either, although we always want to be somewhat entertaining, right? So then the question is, are you there to persuade somebody to buy something from you, to use your services, or are you actually selling a product? Or are you there to motivate people to action? And the difference between persuasion and motivation, persuasion is you're getting people to do something because you're asking. And motivation is you're getting people to do something inspired by your words, but they want to do it. Or it could be a combination. So I want you to think for a moment about what's the purpose of your presentation and make a little note to yourself. That will make it clearer and cleaner when you start to accumulate your content to support this goal. The next thing I have seen over and over that people do not practice, they think they can just sit in front of the computer and just talk. It doesn't work that way, sadly. It doesn't work that way live, and it especially does not work that way when it's a virtual meeting. So I recommend that you practice out loud, ideally in front of the camera while you're doing this, or if it's a live presentation, standing up in the same way that you would be. I do recommend you take the pieces of your presentation out of order. Do the close, do the middle, do the opening, practice them in little pieces, and then you'll get more comfortable with the entire presentation. I usually recommend at least 9 run-throughs, first in pieces and then completely through so that you're comfortable with it. You also want to practice what to do with your fingers and your hands. You can do a little bit of this kind of movement on camera. You can't be as expansive as we are live. So you want to experiment with what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Some people conduct their meetings standing up because they have more energy, they project more energy, and they've just arranged the camera higher. Nobody really knows they're standing up. Experiment for yourself to see what's going to work for you. The next big mistake that I have seen people make is that they fail to organize the content. That's the O in poser. And so you want to think about, first of all, what approach are you taking as the expert, as the professional? Is it logical? That is, you've assembled a whole bunch of convincing data. Is it emotional? Are you appealing to something that I'm frustrated with? Are you appealing to my desire to save time? What is it that you're doing that's reaching me emotionally? And the third approach, most of us can't use, but people in the religious professions, people in Girl Scouts, the nonprofits can use their moral character as an approach for what they're representing. So before we go on now, I'm going to invite you to think about a particular topic or a purpose for a meeting that you have coming up, a presentation. I'm going to invite you, I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and I'm going to put you on gallery view so I can see you all. And I'm going to ask who would be willing to share, and I'm going to invite you to unmute yourself. What is a presentation that you have coming up? What's the topic? And what do you think 2 or 3 of the main ideas you may have that you want to get across? Okay, so I'm going to ask, I don't see any hands raised, so I may just call on you, okay? So let me call on, I see Yvonne. So Yvonne, would you unmute yourself, please? Okay. Yvonne, I know you're doing presentations on, you have 2 businesses, so choose one of them and tell us what you might be talking about, and then 2 or 3 of the ideas that you would be getting across in your presentation, please.
Well, I have a computer business called Computer Community Hospital, and what I would be talking about is at the time of the year that it is hurricane season, then the do's and don'ts and how to prepare for hurricane season.
All right.
I have to take.
Okay.
Can you come back to me?
I'll come back to you. Okay. Mercedes, would you unmute yourself, please? Okay, what kind of presentation have you got coming up, and what might be 1 or 2 of the ideas you would get across?
I have a presentation coming up before some people in the tourism industry, okay, in Orlando, and the idea is to promote marketing and promote the destiny as safe, okay, and also reliable, okay, because no matter how much the opening is there, but then there is this scare of the people to go there. So the ideas would be to talk about safety and reliability, that you can come and you won't get sick.
Thank you. Sounds like it's an important presentation. I know you're going to be very successful with it. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Tanya, would you like to participate? You need to unmute yourself, Tanya.
Hi, everyone. My presentations would be more, you're saying presentations on virtual?
It could be a Zoom presentation. It could be a live presentation.
Okay. Yeah, mine is more persuasive,
Okay.
coupled with logic and facts, because I'm trying to work, we're actually transitioning into going back into the airport, opening up our businesses. So we have to convey to the airport, why it's important to expand the current licenses with the Liquor Control Commission. So there's a logical aspect, obviously, from safety issues with customers, and also they have to, and I guess you would say it's emotional because we are very passionate about trying to make sure that as we transition back into those locations, that number one, we have safety issues managed for customers, but that we're profitable. And so, so
Tanya,
there.
would you tell everybody what city you're in, please? Because
Pardon me?
would you tell everyone what city you're in, what
Oh,
airport?
I'm sorry. I'm Nabo, Detroit, Greater Detroit.
Okay, great, thank you. I know, but not everybody else does. That's
Oh,
wonderful.
okay.
Thank you. Thank
Sorry.
you. All right, so you have a very tactical presentation. You've got to
Yes.
persuade government that it's in their best interest that you reopen your locations at the airport.
Right.
So it's definitely a persuasive presentation, and your approach is going to be different. Okay, let's take someone else. You're not, I'm not seeing you, but I'm going to call on you anyway. How about David Lacone? David, would you like to participate? You need to unmic yourself. It's the one thing about not seeing somebody. I can't tell if he's there. Let's see. Okay. All right. Does anyone else want to? Lori, would you like to? Please. Don't forget to unmute.
Yeah, hi, everybody. It's funny because I thought mine was persuasive, but then it's motivational, actually. I work for a nonprofit organization, and my speech would be why they should have to give money to my organization and what it's all about. And I thought I was persuading them, but you actually corrected it by motivating people to want to give.
Okay, thank you. And can you tell us what the organization is?
Hadassah.
Okay,
Yes, it's Hadassah, the Power of Women Who Do, and it's a World Zionist Organization of America.
okay, thank you all. Okay, I'm going to go back to the screen. If at any point anybody wants to participate later, let me know. So I'm going to go back to screen share. Okay. Can everybody see okay? Yes? All right. So let's go forward. Okay. Part of the challenge we have as experts, and I'm sure you would agree with me, is you have way too much content for any particular time. And there's so much you want to tell people, but we have, as we talked about in some of the previous webinars, very limited attention span. So how do we decide what we need and what we don't need? And the people that haven't done this are really a disaster for us to experience. So every presentation has 4 basic parts. You have an opening where you grab our attention and bring us in. You have what's called the pre-body, which is the overview of the presentation. You have the body where you raise the 1, 2, or 3 main ideas you're trying to get across. And you have the close where you ask us to do something at the end. So let me go through those briefly with you. You want to open with a story of some kind or a commanding fact. And those of you who are with us in the first webinar, remember that I went through 6 ways to open a presentation. And those of you who have just joined now, you will have access to the first webinar, but I'm just going to do 2 of them now as a reminder. So about 1.5 years ago, I was invited to do a workshop on networking for BNI's regional event. BNI is a business networking organization. They have one of a kind, and it was 7 o'clock in the morning. Well, anyone who knows me knows I am not a 7 o'clock in the morning person under the best of circumstances. And to be presenting was even worse. But I got there at 6, I had a coffee, everything seemed to be working properly. About 100 people came into the room. I don't know how anybody can function at that hour, but they were. And then I went to turn on the presentation and it died. I was using someone else's computer that had been provided, and somehow or other, I realized that battery died. I asked someone to go find the technician. They couldn't. Fortunately, I always come with a complete set of my slides on paper. And I did the 1.5-hour workshop with no slides because if I hadn't, they would have been disappointed. They would have wanted their money back. My point of this is that what story, disaster or success, can you open your presentation with? Another example is to use a commanding fact. And the sad news is lately, according to research, only 1 in 3 people is actually paying attention to you at any given time. Everybody's on their phones, they're distracted thinking about something else. And today, this was a statistic I gathered about a year ago. I have a hunch it's probably 1 in 4 or 1 in 6 people. And that means we as presenters need to work even harder, don't we, to keep each other's attention, especially at the beginning. The next thing as part of organizing is they have no overview of what's coming. I shared with you that there was an acronym, POSER. I did not tell you what each letter was, but I did give you a framework. In other webinars that you've seen, I have a more specific agenda. What's yours? How are you going to set the stage for us to follow you? Then we're talking about the format, the body of the presentation. And since my hunch is most of you are doing persuasive, although Lori shared she's doing a motivational presentation, you want to make sure you have these elements. Did you get our attention? Have you shared stuff that's building interest for us? Are you ready for resistance? Everyone is ready to argue with you, not just your daughter or your spouse. Everyone thinks they're an expert and they're ready to challenge you. Are you ready to respond to that? And then what is your motivation to action at the end? The basic format that underlies all body formats is this one, the triple T. Tell me what you're going to tell me. This is why I asked some of you what your topic was. Then you're going to have 1, 2, or 3 points, depending on how long your presentation is. Less than 5 minutes, really only one main point. 10 minutes or more, you can do 3 points. I never recommend more than 3 main ideas because you're going to lose us. And then summarize what you told us with benefit words. And make sure, and somewhat emotionally, because that's going to lead towards your close. Now, the next big mistake that I see people making all the time is that and it's the S, they're not sizing up their audience in advance, and they're not slanting the message to reach the people in their audience. So in any given audience, you're going to have 4 personality types. Next week's webinar, we're going to go a lot deeper into this, but I want to give you enough today to be thinking about your presentation. Who's on your team? Who are your clients? Who are you presenting to? And what is their approach? And is it different than yours? So the first type of person in your audience that you may encounter, you may have one of these at home. It may be you, maybe your boss, but this is called the direct personality. I, in the spirit of full disclosure, am a direct personality. I don't think I'm always right. I can be a little bossy. I love to solve problems. I can get impatient quickly. So when you're presenting to a D, you want to make sure that you have your ducks in a row and that you get to the bottom line quickly because they will not pay attention. Then you have the salesy type, the ones that are high energy. They go around making best friends with everybody. They need a lot of stroking, a lot of praise. They need to be told that they're wonderful. You may know somebody like that. You may be like that. So you've got to make sure your presentation is fun for this kind of person or it won't work. Then you have what's called the steady. These are the people that my daughter is a steady. These are the people that hold a family together. They love tradition. They resist change. They go to a restaurant and always order the same thing. So if you're coming in with something brand new and exciting, you may be threatening these people. How are you going to adjust your approach? And finally, we have what we call the checklisters. These are people that are the anal retentives. They love rules and procedures and bylaws. And if you don't pack your presentation with enough data, they're going to think you're not trustworthy. What do to appeal to these? And next week's webinar, we're going to go a lot deeper into all of these. But I have found that people just avoid this, or they forget about these differences and they only talk from their own perspective. And that usually doesn't work. The fourth biggest mistake is they forget to entertain, educate, and energize with inspiration. So you can entertain by sharing relevant stories, like the one I did on what happened to me at BNI. Another example of a story is a client I had years ago who was asked to give his first ever presentation in Colombia. He was given 7 minutes to talk. And that was Juan Diego Calle, the founder of .co. And I worked with him for about 6 weeks on his presentation. We went to a University of Miami auditorium. We practiced there. Fast forward, he live streamed from Colombia, got a standing ovation. But it took us 6 weeks of a lot of intensive work to get him to that point. And then in 2014, he sold his company for $109 million. What story can you use to entertain us, but it needs to be a relevant story. It's not just to make us laugh. You can also use props, funny signs, video clips, share observations, ask for people to guess things. You may remember at the first webinar, I asked people to guess, how long does a goldfish pay attention? And I had people guess and I gave a prize, but I neglected to tell everybody, I forgot to give the answer at the end. And I did at the second webinar. By the way, it's a goldfish will pay attention as long as 9 seconds. For those of you who are new joining us now, I have all kinds of props. Here's one. Do you sometimes feel like you're being worked to the bone? You met Peter over here, right? So what kind of props could you use to help entertain us? I call them add-ons. The next thing, some people are really good at this and some people are not. You want to give us some meat. You want to give us a little bit of your expertise when you're sharing with us. Don't oversell, don't give us too much, but make us feel that the time we spent with you was worthwhile. And then the other key is to energize by making your content you focused. You, that is the people in the audience. So here are some examples of how you can weave the word you into your presentation. You may agree that. You may find that. Your doctor may have said this. You might have heard that instead of I, we all the time. Make sure you shift to you. And then another way to get that engagement is to ask questions. So what have you done when you're faced with this kind of situation? How do you introduce a new concept in your organization? What do you think is the best time to change the direction of thinking? What questions could you ask and weave into your presentation that will make you appear to be, and you actually will be, focused on your audience and their needs and not just yourself? The last big mistake that I have seen presenters make at the end is there's no rally to action. That's the R in poser. And I love this quote from Nora Roberts. If you don't go after what you want, you'll never have it. And if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So you want to make sure that when you get to the end of your presentation, you're really letting us know exactly what you want us to do, which direction you want us to go. you've probably seen these arrows lately in Publix and other stores, one way in the grocery store. Who would have ever dreamed we would get to that point, right? Well, in your presentation, you want to be as clear as you can with the path that we need to take that you're guiding us on. You do want to create a sense of now. You do want to get people to act as quickly as possible. And you want to make it really easy for people to do what you're asking. If they need to click on something, if they need to call you, what is it that they need to do in order to follow up with what you're recommending? You may recall that one of the previous webinars, we focused on benefit words and problem words and pain words. Make sure you include those in your call for action, because we tend to respond emotionally, not just logically. And if you're just giving me the facts, it's probably not enough in the close. And it's also important to remember, just as we said, we had 4 different personality types in your audience, you may have different targets in your meeting. And so you want to make sure that you're incorporating something that's going to appeal to all of them in your call for action. Now, some of us find this call for action a little uncomfortable. We call it salesy. I don't really want to have to ask people for something. And I admit, I fall in that category. It's much easier to coach someone else through that process. But in doing these webinars, I realized I have stuff of value, so why not ask people to consider it? So here's an example of using an emotional approach. Are you frustrated with getting overlooked in key conversations? Are you frustrated that you're not really able to present your expertise powerfully enough, whether it's virtually, on a video, or in face-to-face? Do you find yourself sometimes leaving out the important things that you meant to say? Are you missing opportunities because you're not visible? You get the idea. So what I have to recommend is that you consider joining a Speakout e-coaching group. You'll get guidance on how to develop an attention-grabbing short video or presentation. We'll go deeper into techniques to organize your content faster. So whether it's a planned presentation or an impromptu one, you can be ready to rock and roll. You'll have an opportunity to share your ideas and learn from others, and it's personalized instruction in a small group. And I'd be glad to talk with you about it after the webinar or tomorrow, whenever it's convenient for you. As a reminder, when you produce your videos, you can put them on social media. You can send them out to your clients now. Everybody loves video. Nobody's really reading anymore, I've been told. So it's a way, it's an alternative to a blog, or it just will get you more comfortable for those opportunities that will be coming your way. Now, when you go to close, make sure you maintain that positive attitude you've had all along. You want to smile and get eye contact, so smile back at the camera. That's one of the things I've had to keep reminding myself, because I find myself getting serious sometimes. When there's no audience to give you that feedback, that smile needs to come from inside you. Assume you're going to get what you're asking for. Make that call for action clear. Nod your head, and then try not to say anything else. That's when you're live, and that's at the end of a presentation on live. So now, ladies and gentlemen, you will never be a poser, will you? Because you know the key elements to planning, having a clear purpose, and practice, and the importance of all of those. You have some basics on how to organize your content. You understand that we need to adjust to the different types of people in our audiences, and that it's critical that you remember the 3 E's, which are entertain, educate, and energize to inspire. And finally, make sure that you have worked on your close, that you have a rally to action at the end, which will make all the hard work that you've spent, all the time you've spent putting your presentation together, worthwhile. So we have a couple of special offers today, and after I do this, I'm going to open up the mic for questions. I'm going to invite you to consider participating in one of our Speakout e-coaching groups. There are special rates. We take no more than 6, no competitors. And today we have a special offer of your go-to presentation kit. It's got 4 ebooks and 4 videos. It's only $39.95. Let me show you what it includes. These are fillable ebooks. The first one is how to get started to reach that yes. It asks you all kinds of questions to get you ready and lead you through brainstorming. And it comes with a really wonderful, fun video, she says herself, called How to Overcome Your Fear and Loathing of Public Speaking. The next one in the kit is how to organize your content to reach your speaking goals. And there's a video that goes along with that. The next one is how to open strong to command attention right away. And it comes with a video on using your body language and words. And the last one in this little kit is how to influence different personality types every day. That comes with a video. And that's what we'll be going over in next week's webinar. So next week, the topic is online persuasion. Learn how to recognize and influence the 4 personality types now. That'll be next Thursday, same time, 12:30. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to, if you like the presentation, just ask you to please tweet about it, like us on Facebook, join us on LinkedIn. And now I'm going to stop sharing and invite anyone who has a question to ask a question. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to say who has a question or who would like to. Yvonne, do you want to finish telling us what you were telling us before? I guess not. Okay. What's a question? Okay. Looking to see?
Anne,
Yes.
I just want to chime in for a minute, and I want to thank you for today's presentation. It was incredible. I didn't know how much I didn't know. And one thing I have learned is after last week and looking at myself today, my lighting is all wrong. There's a lot of things wrong with how I'm presenting myself. And so now I'm going to go back to your previous 2 and learn how to do it for myself. So thank you very much for everything you are doing.
Oh, thank you, Terry. Terry did a great job last week on how to do your makeup for. I'm doing the best I can. I'm still learning from her, but I would encourage, we also have a chat room I forgot to mention at the beginning. So if you're not comfortable asking a question, you're certainly welcome to put a question in the chat room. And I do want to encourage you to join us next Thursday. As I said, we'll be focusing on how to persuade, how to deal with the different personality types. And I called it online persuasion. So any other questions? Yes? Would you like? Hi, Susan.
I had my video off because I watched Terry's last week and I don't have any makeup on. But anyway, so one of the things that you talked about was when you're have a call for action that you should be appealing to the different groups. So how would you go about, I mean,
that's a good question.
Give an example or something.
Yeah, that's a good question. For example, next week, what we're going to do is there's also, let's differentiate. Sometimes there's only one person that you have a call for action, right?
Right.
You're just talking to one person. So let's say that person is a direct personality. You figured out that they're telling you what to do all the time. They don't have much attention span. So, and we're going to do more of this in next week's session, but one of the main things to remember is that a direct personality believes he is the king or she is the queen.
Oh, I can't imagine that.
You cannot tell them what to do. So you need to go into that presentation with 2 possible options. So for example, if Lori is going after fundraising, and she's got a prospect in front of her and she senses as this kind of person, she can't tell that person, you need to give me $10,000 today.
Right.
choice of, well, we have this, you could get $10,000 and be a silver angel, or you could get $15,000 and be a gold angel. Which one do you want to be? Okay. And you're
Right.
different for each of the styles. And then when you have a group, you're going to have all 4 types, which means your clothes has to have a big picture, it has to be entertaining, it's got to be reassuring, and it's got to have enough detail so you appeal to all 4 types. It's a lot of work, but it works. I see a question. Thank you. So did I answer? Anything else?
Yes.
Okay. I see a question. In the call to action, do you recommend having only one way for them to take advantage of it? That's a really good question. And sometimes less is more. But as I shared, with a direct personality, you probably will lose if you only give them, if they're not the decision maker. Other people may welcome that decision being made for them. So it's partly your feel of the situation. Okay, good question. Any other questions? Well, I thank you all for being on board. You can write to me if you have a question or call me afterwards. I'm happy to help you. And please let me know if you'd like to participate in our e-coaching groups or take advantage of the offer for our workshop, our presentation kit. And you will be getting a link to this webinar and the 3 that we did before. Please tell your friends to share about this. And someone's asking, could I share a little bit more about the coaching groups? Vicki, thank you for asking. Yes, we're limiting them to 6 people, non-competitors. And what you're going to do in that coaching group is you're going to either create a video that you can use for yourself, will help you script it and practice it, or a short presentation that you need to be given. It could be about your company, could be your nonprofit, doesn't really matter. We're just not allowing competitors in the groups. And I'd be glad to talk with you individually about the costs and how we set that up. So thank you for asking. Thank you all again. It's wonderful to have you all here today. And I look forward to seeing you next Thursday, 12:30, same time, same place. Be well, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Anne. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you. Bye-bye now.